And thanks for coming to our South Wyoming campus. If you're watching online, maybe at the lake, by a campfire, is there nothing better than Michigan in the summer when you smell like the bacon and the sausage cooking at a campfire? Except the fact when you can't eat it, that's the worst. But that's awesome. So thank you if you're able to watch online with us this weekend. Hard to believe that it's Labor Day weekend. Summer's kind of wrapping up. We're ready to jump into pumpkin everything. But I love summer. I'm sure you do too. And I feel like one of those things that you love about summer is just those things that only happen during the summer. For instance, I think it's probably the only time that Michigan and Michigan State fans agree that you can go to Ohio to Cedar Point. That's like a rite of passage. It's the only time we agree about probably Ohio. But there's just something about going on a roller coaster. And Cedar Point, man, like the best place, right? I'd spend every ride, every time I'd get on the ride, roller coaster, I'd get off the ride. I'd go to the next roller coaster. I'd do the ride, the loops, the hills, everything. Until the equilibrium starts to kick in. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, congratulations, you're not old. But there comes a point where you just can't do the roller coaster rides like you used to be able to do. Anyone else have that? Okay, a couple of us will admit it. I have found, though, that there's a new way to experience a roller coaster, kind of. It's called the 4D ride. Have you ever ridden something 4D? Not 3D, but it's 4D. I'll give you an example. If you've ever been to Universal Studios in Florida, they have this ride called Spider-Man, where you feel like you're actually climbing the wall and you're going through a city. Like, you really feel like you're transporting. And like you might go past a fire hydrant and all of a sudden the spray will come out and water will just splash on you. You're not soaking wet, but you get the illusion and the feeling of moving. There's a Transformers ride, same thing. There's a Harry Potter ride where you feel like the dragons are breathing fire on you and you feel the heat. It's amazing. And you don't walk off the ride feeling all like, oh, my equilibrium. But I think my all-time favorite ride is at Epcot Center. It's a ride called Soarin'. Has anyone ever ridden Soarin'? Okay, a couple of you have. I'm going to do my best to describe this. It's mind-blowing. You get strapped into this thing. It's not like over your shoulders, but I think they put just a lap belt on. And you get the illusion that you're flying, you're soaring through different continents. So like you start off, and then you feel like you're flying through Africa, and you fly over the desert and the dry area. And then you see these elephants that are playing in the sand and the dirt, and the elephant takes his trunk into the ground and like throws dirt into the air, and you fly through it. And just at that moment, you suddenly smell what Africa might smell like. It's the most amazing thing. And then you keep flying, and you fly through Paris, and you go through the Eiffel Tower. And then you fly through like Australia where the Opera House is, right along the river. It's amazing. It's incredible. And then you come back to Florida, and then you fly over this field full of oranges. And just at that moment, they put this smell of oranges out. So it gives you the illusion that you're flying over an orange field. It is incredible. You feel everything. And then the ride stops. And in the midst of the ride, there's this incredible music. And you're just like caught up in this emotion. It's like a 50-foot screen in front of you. Like you can't see anything but this. And you feel like you're in it. You feel like you're there. The ride quits, the music stops, the lights come up, and people start clapping. Clapping for a ride. It's incredible. And I will say, you feel like you really have traveled. But you haven't gone anywhere. In fact, you've stayed in the same room with the same 55 people or so, but you've all experienced something that's just moved you in a way that you can't explain. And I'll never forget the first time I actually rode it, I will admit it, I had tears in my eyes because I was so moved by it. I'm like, this is incredible. It's an incredible experience. All the sensations of flying, all the emotion wrapped up. And the reason I share that story is because I think sometimes that's what can happen here at church in worship. The fog machine's up, the band's playing the right song, you're with your favorite people. You get caught up in an emotion. And I believe that that's real. And I believe that God is here in the midst of the Spirit moving. But I think sometimes it's like we can walk out of church and it's like, yeah, it didn't hit me today. Well, what happened last week? Why did it hit you then, but it's not hitting you today? Did something change? Did God change, or did our heart change? Like, what happened in the midst of that? It sometimes feels like God isn't as close, doesn't it? Do you ever feel that way? The second time I rode Soarin', the same thing happened. I was strapped in. The only thing that was different, I was with different people. It was the same music. It was the same smells, the same feeling. And when I got off the ride, people clapped, but I didn't have tears in my eyes. Like, what changed? It was the same experience, but something didn't connect right. And I think that we start chasing that same kind of soaring feeling sometimes in the middle of worship, in the middle of church. We can easily kind of confuse what those moments are, the goosebump moments, with why didn't that song hit me? Every time we sing Battle Belongs, man, something just happens, but this week it was good, but it didn't connect like that one week. Have you ever had that happen? You start believing that feeling something is the same as worshiping someone. And that's exactly why these past weeks we've been talking about the other 167. And if you're just here for the first time, I'm glad that you're here. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'm glad that you've tuned in. We've been talking about what happens in the other 167 hours that we're given, other than this 1 hour together. How can we soar in the other 167 hours? Through rest, through service, through worship. And today we're going to learn about how we respond in the ordinary, unseen hours. It's very easy for us to come in here, hey, things are great, we're with our good friends, you feel like you can be yourself. But are you really being real, as Pastor Marcus will say, or is there a mask that you can't even take off when you're here? And Jesus said, it's not the healthy who need the doctor, it's the sick. And so when people say, oh, church is the last place they'd want to see me. No, that is where we want to see you. That's where God wants to meet you, is through that junk of life. I agree. Because it's in those unseen moments where we choose to respond, and that is worship. Give me an example. If anybody has come at any point from Traverse City down to West Michigan, the traffic can get a little crazy. Even if you're going to Traverse City, because there's been construction, you could be backed up a mile. So what happens when someone cuts you off in traffic? How do you respond? I'm going to answer the same way you will. I hope I did better. I feel like I've gotten better, but sometimes, just the other day, someone used that merge lane and just shot right in front of me, and I'm like, you know the lane's going to end, right? And just cut me off. And I could have just blown my mind, laid on my horn, but I chose not to. I'd like to say I do it right every time. That's one of the times. Maybe it's because I was trying to speak on this for this Sunday. God was saying, dude, you need an example. But worship is a lifestyle, and I think that we've, myself included, have viewed worship as being in this room with all the right songs and all the right people and all the right feelings. But the other 167, your life, your response is how you worship. And we're going to dive into that this morning because the mundane moments of life are coming. A typical mundane Monday, a typical Tuesday. And now that school is back, the things that start to happen in the middle of a week, where the homework assignment is forgotten, when the friend slams the locker door in front of you, How do you choose to respond? So we're going to learn an important biblical truth this morning, and I feel free to grab your phone. You can take notes on your phone or take pictures of the screen, because a spirit-filled response is an act of worship. That is an act of worship, a spirit-filled response. To better understand this, we're going to dive into Galatians chapter 5. You can feel free to follow along or follow on the screen. You probably know this. This verse is a pretty famous one in the Bible. In fact, here at Cornerstone, we studied a whole series on this not long ago. It says this in Galatians 5, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance or patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Against such thing there is no law." It's one of those Bible verses that you feel like you can see somebody posting on a Facebook post, right? They're sitting at the top of a mountaintop. They got their Trader Joe's bag right here. They got their beautiful beanie on with their Birkenstock shoes, sipping coffee. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience. Right? But that's not what that was actually meant for. It's telling us that you're going to have real life, and real life gets real messy. You're going to get stuck in real traffic situations. You're going to have someone that sends you that really nasty text. You're going to have laundry that just keeps multiplying, and dishes that just keep showing up in the dish, in the sink. The fruit of the Spirit is a response. And that is a way to honor and worship God. That choice becomes an act of worship. Is there someone in your life that it just seems like every time there's bad news that comes, their response is different than a typical response? Like the person, something happens, the dishwasher breaks, just as an example. And their response becomes more like, you know what? God's going to take care of it. I trust that. That's an act of worship. Because how you want to respond is, again? That's human. But when you choose to respond with, I'm trusting God in the midst of this, that's an act of worship. So let me break this down. Love, in the context of this verse in Galatians, love isn't the heart emotion. Love is more of a form of response. How do you love in the midst of something? I just heard an interview with a group of people who were friends of this woman who scammed her friends out of hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, and scammed a church at the same time. And if you listen to this interview, at the end of the entire thing, they start talking to all these people who were scammed. And rightfully so, they were angry. They were hurt. They wanted justice. All of which, yes, yes, yes. But then they talked to her best friend. And her best friend was scammed. And her response was unlike anyone else's response. Her response was, if I could say something to her right now, I'd like to have a conversation because I still love her. That's choosing love even when you've been wronged. That's worship. How about peace? We prayed for peace this morning. We pray for peace around the world. What does that really mean? Well, it's not needing to win the argument. It's not needing to get the last word. That's showing peace. That's worship. When you're prioritizing relationship over being right, like that friend did about her friend that wronged her. That's peace. Kindness. It's a word we throw around a lot. It's not about just being polite here on Sunday, because if someone cuts you off in the parking lot, inadvertently, your reaction at church might be different than if it happens at Costco. Am I right? But our same reaction should be the way if someone cuts you off in church as it is at Costco. We should have that same kindness instead of letting an impulse run your life, which leads to self-control, ironically enough. Self-control is saying, I'm not going to do it. Self-control is maybe moving away from the impulses and the urges that you have in life. Self-control is not responding to the text how you want to respond. That's self-control. If you don't know what I do on a regular basis, so I'm not part of the teaching team at Cornerstone, I work on the radio at a radio station, Joy 99, on the Tommy part of the Tommy and Brooke Morning Show. We've done mornings together for 21 years. I've received hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of emails, hundreds of texts. And sometimes my favorite ones are when someone calls me and just starts ripping me apart. I gotta be honest, because I'm used to it. Some people have opinions. Especially when they get to the end and I can just say, can I ask a question? Yeah, go ahead. Were you listening to Joy 99, Tommy and Brooke? Crickets. They called the wrong radio station. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. So I've learned to just pause and listen. And then I think, so what are you going to do when you call that other radio station? How will you respond then? Because if you're calling a station that plays Jesus music and that's how you're going to be on the phone, whew. But it happens. I've had to learn to just let them say their piece. Responding to email, it's a little bit easier because you have a time to reflect, but we've all been there. You've gotten an email. You've gotten a text. You don't want to get a text on a holiday weekend from someone on a Saturday night about work. How do you choose to respond? Well, I chose to wait 12 hours to respond. That happened this weekend. It happens. I don't get it right. But when you get it right, you kind of feel like, I feel like I did that right. There's something that kind of happens to you, right? And what Paul is talking about in Galatians 5, he continues, since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited or provoke one another or be jealous of one another. Those are the moments that you hang on to with the email, the text, those phone calls that come in, right? It's speaking in spirit, speaking and staying in step with the Spirit. In other words, we've got a choice. We have a response. And that's an act of worship. See, we've lost what the word worship is, I think. I really think a lot of us think, Sunday morning worship. What about the other 167? I think a lot of us were taught that. How about this? Do you have a friend in your life that you feel like the only time they reach out to you is when they need something? Like, hey, I'm moving this weekend. I know you got that cool red truck. Or the only time you hear from them is when they need a ride. How do you respond when it's like, you never talk to me unless you need something? Because we want to respond with, you never call me unless you need something. But you choose to respond differently. To say, let me check my schedule. Let me get back with you. Take a deep breath. Pause. How we respond is worship. So taking it even further, worship is an offering. It is not an emotion. Worship is an offering, not an emotion. We're going to redefine what worship is by just being in here this morning. Because for a long time, I think that we were taught that worship is the music. Worship is hearing the right song, reading the right Bible verse. All good things, all important things. They stay in step with how we feel with God, but it's an everyday thing. The everyday, the mundane Monday when you go back to work. I know it's different this week being Labor Day weekend, but again, Tuesday's coming. Everybody will be back in school. Your morning routine will kick in. You're going to go back to work. The construction is going to still be there. How about this week when the traffic happened where that truck hit the bridge on 131 southbound? Your morning drive was changed and very inconvenienced. But what if your attitude becomes, well, I hope they're okay. I'm glad it wasn't my car. I'm glad everyone around me is all right, as opposed to, here we go again. That's how I feel, right? But what comes out when you're inconvenienced? Is it love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control? Who are you when no one's watching? How do you choose to live? That's what worship really is. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get frustrated. We're human. That's how we are. But I feel like when you choose to do it the right way, don't you feel like you can sometimes look back and go, I'm glad I didn't send that email? Because I think of the people that have called my radio show, that have ripped me apart. Like, how do they feel on the other end of the phone when they're like, you're calling the wrong person? Oh, sorry. How does that must feel on the other side of the phone? I spent many years as a coach, coaching my kids' team. Side note, if you want to spend time with your kids, don't just drop them off at practice, get involved. That's what I learned to do. So as the coach of the football team, when the practice starts at 5, the coach doesn't show up at 5. The coach shows up about 15, 20 minutes early to get things set up. So when your son, sitting in the passenger seat, says, I forgot my helmet, 2 miles down the road, I'm inconvenienced. True story, by the way. But my favorite is when he forgot his shoes. I don't know how you do that. He literally didn't bring shoes. I didn't respond very well in that moment, just for the truth. But if I was today, I would have to choose to respond with worship. How can you respond a little more gently? Instead of lashing out, the self-control to go, we need to not do this again. Let's figure this out. Maybe we lay our shoes out by our helmet the night before. Instead of sarcasm, because that's what I really wanted to do. Romans 12:1 says, therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. So let's break that down. Because I've received blank, I can respond with blank. Because I've received love, I can respond with love. Because I've received mercy, I can respond with mercy. Because I've received grace, I can respond with grace. Offering your bodies as a living sacrifice. Not just raising your hand when the Battle Belong plays, which I was, but it's offering your body as a living sacrifice. Your everyday, your reactions, your routines. I'll never forget, my wife and I used to lead youth group, and we went over to this person's house, and we heard somebody singing in her garden. And we were kind of laughing like, hey, what's your mom doing? You ever hear her singing? And he laughed, he goes, yeah, she does that all the time. I said, what is she singing? She goes, she's singing her favorite hymns. I said, really? He said, yeah, she takes care of her flowers and sings her song. It's just kind of a way to talk with God. That's beautiful. That's the everyday, ordinary routine as an offering of taking care of pulling weeds as an offering to God. It's beautiful. That's real worship. It's not lashing out. Oh, I got more weeds. Sure you do, but she's using it as an offering. And the question isn't when is this going to happen? It's like, how fast is it going to happen, right? Like getting out of the parking lot right away, something's going to test you. It never fails. Never fails. Something today will trigger you to want to respond potentially in the wrong way. Or you do it as you're offering it as a form of worship. So as we wrap up this series on the other 167, instead of chasing the feeling of Soren, the feeling of, why didn't that song hit me like it did last time? What happens in the other 167 of the daily life that we live? I invite you to pull your phone out and you can take pictures because I'm going to give you some practical things up on the screen and some ways that you can do this in your daily life. For moms, dads, grandpas, grandmas, students, we can all do these things. For instance, you can start your day with a simple prayer. A simple prayer before anything in the chaos hits. It's a simple prayer. Lord, in the mundane moments, help me see you. That's an example. In the mundane moments, help me see you. When the dishes just keep piling up, help me see you. When there was weeds in my garden, help me see you. It's an offering to begin your day with worship. Sunday morning, I feel like it's a little bit easier because you're coming here, right? You're going to log on right here. You're going to watch church. And then Monday hits. How do you start? With simple prayer. How about slow down to notice your response? Slow down to notice your response. You're not going to always get it right. Something will trigger you. But sometimes just asking the question gives the Spirit room to react. Instead of, I need to answer you right now, a simple pause, a simple breath. We have trouble with silence, don't we? Like, I can't sleep at night unless I have the sound of a fan going. That silence it's like almost paralyzing. I can't stand it. I need white noise. We don't like silence. But when you stop before you take the next step, slow down and notice your responses. This one might be my favorite, is celebrate the small wins. Because when you do stop and you did it right, hey, you know what? You're making progress. And this is good for us because as parents, when your child does something right, don't you say, you did that really well. Very well done. But as an adult, there's nobody cheering you on, right? It's like there's nobody going, hey, well done, nice job. Here's a scratch and sniff sticker, good job. So celebrate those times when you have the little small win in life, when you choose kindness over frustration, when you choose peace over response of like, oh yeah, well what about this? Those moments matter to God. And that's where I think in all of our mind, you almost see like maybe God becomes like smiling. You hear that phrase, but it's like, I really do. I feel like God's like, well done, my child. You did that well. But here's the cool thing about God is even if you don't do it well, he's going to go, I still love you. Let's try it again. And invite the Holy Spirit into your ordinary moments. The ordinary, simple moments of life. Because here's the truth. You can't manufacture the fruit of the Spirit. You can't manufacture love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. You can't manufacture that. But if it's a part of your life, part of who you are, the ordinary moments do become acts of worship. You know, a tree just doesn't all of a sudden go, I'm going to get big, I'm going to get big. It's rooted and it grows. And I hope you do look back on a week, on a day, on a year and go, you know what? I used to respond really poorly in a situation like that, but I feel like I've gotten better. So that's why you should celebrate that. I'd like to invite the band to come up, and as they do, leading us into a song of worship, I want to tell you about one of the most famous worship songs and where it came from. Probably in the last 25 years or so, this pastor of this church was realizing that his church was getting very caught up in the music, getting very caught up in what the presentation looked like. And the pastor kind of felt like the church service started losing the meaning of what it was. And so he challenged the worship leader to write a song based on this. And they actually pulled music out of the service. So imagine coming here and there is no band. And it's just an hour of teaching, an hour of gathering, but no music for like a month. And at first, the people thought that seemed kind of weird. And then that second week, it was like, why aren't we singing? And the third week, they realized, this just doesn't seem right. And then they unleashed the song from the worship leader who sang the lyrics of the chorus, which said, and I know we've sung it, I'm coming back to the heart of worship because it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it when it's all about you. When it's all about you, Jesus. We hope that this series has challenged you to maybe get back to what worship really is. It's rest. It's reaction with a Jesus-filled way. It's your response. It's imitating Jesus in those other 167. I hope it's changed you. What a perfect way to launch into fall, because this meeting on Sunday morning is the launch point into the week. We're going to have the beautiful moments. We're going to have messy moments. How we respond in each of those really reflects who Jesus is, and that's the heart of God. The stories of Jesus and what he did and how he responded. He was so consistent. I want to be more consistent, don't you? More consistency in my everyday life, not just on Sundays, but every day. I'd like to invite you to stand, and we're going to say a prayer together that's going to help us maybe walk into this moment of what worship really is and set our hearts as we get to our last song. And I also pray that this last song, you really draw into it so that you can soar into the last week and feel something not manufactured, but truly feel like you're in step with God. So let's say this prayer together. God, thank you for inviting us into a life of worship, not just in songs, but in every moment. Teach us to respond to life in ways that reflect you. Grow the fruit of your Spirit in us. Help us to see ordinary moments as sacred. We offer you our lives, not just the parts we've polished, but the unpolished ones where we need you. May we be living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to you. In Jesus' name, amen.